homelessness isn't about lack of affordable housing. It's about drug addicts that want to wander around and live in tents on the sidewalk. And so you can't coddle antisocial behavior. You can't subsidize antisocial behavior. You have to stigmatize it. You can't celebrate people with purple hair, with nose rings, 4 kids with 4 different men who are dressed like trash and make them out to be some sort of cutting edge heroes. You have to call them what they are. These are people that have failed in life and they're on their deathbed.
That's Jesse Wesley Waters from Fox News giving advice to people on how to be compassionate. Nope, that's his advice on how to handle homelessness in America. And we're gonna talk about what inspired that rant. But first, John, what is your reaction to it?
I'm glad that you clarified that was Jesse Waters. I just assumed it was like a reverend or a pastor or something.
Yeah.
These people do not deserve your compassion because they're not dressed nice enough. I will only be kind to the unhoused who wear 3-piece suits. That's his point. He is maybe the most garbage of all of them in some ways. Not the most dangerous out of all of them, but the most mediocre, the most garbage.
My takeaway is that according to Jesse Water, the one group that isn't stigmatized enough in America is the homeless. They get a pretty nice free pass.
Yeah, stigmatizing them would really mix things up, I think.
They're romanticized basically in America, right, Jesse Wesley? It's so stupid.
Did he watch like an old school cartoon about, someone with a stick and a bindle going on adventures across the Old West and he thought, we're really giving them a pass?
But that's the thing that they're not gonna understand, is like literally speaking, yes, people riding the rails, riding the blinds, those folks were romanticized back in the day. Now everybody talks trash about the homeless, which is so mean. And there's a lot to it. That's not the only thing. And we're gonna show you some of his more horrible takes on this very same issue, but I do wanna fill in some of the blanks for you. That is, on Monday, Sean Hannity held a wide-ranging interview with Gavin Newsom on one of the issues, and one of the issues that came up was California's homeless population. Let's watch what they said.
The homeless numbers are not really good.
No.
For you in your state versus Florida.
I acknowledge that. And no, I wouldn't compare ourselves to anyone. It's a disgrace, the homeless issue out
in
here.
2008, you had a 10-year plan.
Yeah.
I got the tape. Let me play it for you.
Let's do it, San Francisco.
We believe fundamentally that food solves hunger, that shelters solve sleep, and that housing solves homelessness. And if we're gonna solve the problem of those that are out on the streets that we define as homeless, we better solve the housing problem if we're going to have an impact. And that's why we established this framework, what we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in San Francisco.
Okay, now here we are.
You wanna know the results after 10 years?
Okay, here's
but
the
it's not
comparison.
No, I don't need to look at
You don't like my charts. I know you wouldn't
charts.
like
I know the charts. I know these charts so well. Yeah. After 10 years, we reduced the street population by 33%. This state has not made progress in the last 2 decades as it relates to homelessness.
Why?
Because housing costs are too high, our regulatory thickets are too problematic, localism has been too impactful, meaning people locally are pushing back against new housing starts and construction. We got involved. We're holding cities and counties accountable. I'm suing cities that are not producing housing. We actually have a 15-year high in new housing starts in the state of California. I own this. I take responsibility for this. This is personal to me. I love this state.
So there you go, John. That's what inspired it. You have Gavin Newsom. A lot of people have different opinions of Gavin Newsom. The undeniable opinion is Gavin Newsom will be running for president at the first possible opportunity. And Ron DeSantis is so afraid of Gavin Newsom that he'd rather run against Trump first, either to fail miserably and get name recognition, but possibly make it in before a dynamite-looking, slick-backed hair guy who had intercourse with Donald Trump Jr.'s wife, look it up, runs for president. So there's that.
There's that, and more than just that. More than was probably needed.
But the reason I'm saying that, just to clarify, is I'm saying that to put it in the way that like a Donald Trump kind of dialect, so that the people who respond to that kind of messaging, which is something that undeniably folks watching Gavin Newsom run for president will absolutely gravitate toward.
That's true, yeah. If we could put up the B-roll of him again for just a second. You mentioned that he's considered good looking, whatever. I also think that he looks like if you asked Midjourney to generate a politician, it's what he would look like. But he also, like in a lot of these photos, looks like a particularly fancy vampire.
He really
has
does.
a little bit of that. But anyway, to the substance. Look, I like his approach. It's all still the way that he talked with Sean Hannity about his record, that he didn't run from it, all that. It's still PR, it's still branding, but I prefer people at least rhetorically taking responsibility. He had some good facts to back up his position. Sean Hannity is not particularly interested in any of this, which is why he answered a question about, would you like to know how our success was after 10 years by trying to show a chart comparing California and Florida, as if that has anything to do with the growth or decline of the unhoused population in California over time. It doesn't have anything to do with it. But like, if I could just briefly go back to Jesse Waters.
Yeah.
In this line of work, and technically Jesse Waters is in the same sort of line of work as us. It's person wearing tie, talking at camera. A lot of the time, because we're trying to persuade people, we'll say X isn't because of Y, it's because of Z. People disagree about the causes of things. It's the most natural thing in the world. So it should make sense though, the one that you're saying it is, rather than the one that most people think it is. So if you hear someone say to you, homelessness isn't due to affordable housing, it's due to drug addicts wanting to wander around on the street and live in tents, that should raise some red flags. Because feel free to raise your hand in the audience if you have shelter and would like to not anymore. You'd prefer to just live on the street in a tent. Nobody watching Jesse Waters thinks, you know what, I find that kind of appealing. That's probably why they want to do it. And yet they're very ready to assume that just because they hate and fear the unhoused, that's probably true of them. It would never be true of a real human, but for them, it explains their behavior perfectly.
Right, and the solution he provides is just to be meaner to people.
Yeah, people aren't throwing rotting food at the unhoused enough. That would really motivate them to get off the streets.
Yeah, as promised, we have more video of Jesse Waters freaking out over the homeless. Please take a look.
You only have one solution. You bulldoze the 50-block radius and you institutionalize everybody and detoxify them, and then you let them out. It was more civilized when we banished them to asylums and put them in straitjackets and gave them the help and the drugs that they needed in an institution. This is not civilized to let people sling poop. Homeless people, from the people that have spoken, want to be homeless.
So there's that amazing collection of guy who has been given pretty much everything. A guy who was just like a PA on O'Reilly, probably because he had a family connection, then gets a segment and just says whatever they want him to say in a way that is most aggressively horrible, and gets to this point where he and Will Cain will fight over worst person who gets to potentially in 30 years take over for the now re-empty Tucker Carlson slot. That is what they're vying for. And the way that they do it is not to solve the homelessness issue. That's not where their viewers come from. Their viewers are in rural America. They are placed around in the heartland, so to speak. And what he's giving them is something they'll never have to worry about. It just gives them something to be mad about blue zones.
Yeah.
To say it is a godless hellscape over there. But will they do anything that, say, Jesus would ever do to people who are homeless? No, they won't do that. They need an excuse to be as horrible as possible and ignore statistics that lead to the exact situation that he's complaining about, as he's offering a complete non-starter of like this toxicity, this goo to his viewers to make them feel awesome, but really make them feel horrible because they love feeling awesome. Here are some statistics. Once upon a time, mass homelessness did not exist in the United States. The phenomenon, as we now know, is homelessness, pervasive, unremarkable, seemingly intractable, arose in the 1980s. In 1970, the US had a surplus of 300,000 affordable rental homes. Under President Reagan, my guy, federal spending on low-income housing plummeted from 32 billion to 7 billion. Affordable units evaporated, and with them, many of the legal safeguards allowing poor tenants to stay in the relative few that remained. And meanwhile, from 1985 to 2020, rent prices increased from 149%, while income grew just 35%. And that simple math will prove to you that it is impossible to afford to pay rent. Rent prices have increased about 4 times faster. Here's a chart that shows that.
Wow.
That huge gap is unsustainable, especially if it keeps growing at slopes that are that disparate. Now, maybe it's catching up. That last little bit seemed like it's they're kind of going hand in hand, but until that gap starts to shrink, we can't get back to the thing that everybody told you. They told you that you pay 1/3 of your income on rent, it's gonna be fine, but people aren't doing that anymore. It's not possible.
Yeah.
And a reason that's the problem, Jesse, Wessie, is because developers do come in and bulldoze that area. And what they build after that is not a solution. It's not housing for the people whose places to live just got bulldozed. It's high rises. It's really expensive housing. And I'll spot you. Like, there's Democratic voters in Los Angeles who are all about it.
Yep.
And that's a problem. And here is the theme that will arise first in the district attorney race for Los Angeles that I hope people start to glom onto and they start to be reasonable about stuff, is there are plans that fix these problems. They have been researched, they are out there, they need funding, Jesse Wessie. They just need funding. And the bannermen for the progressive movement, so to speak, that are trying to change the prosecutorial system are just actors and politicians in Los Angeles. George Gascon is a former used car salesman and former cop who will say and do anything with absolutely no trial experience whatsoever, has no clue what he's doing. But he does help displace the people who weren't changing anything whatsoever. And the next step in this hellscape Hegelian dialectic of how we fix problems in cities is that now we have to go find the synthesis of these two approaches, the people who are following laws and the people who are shaking up the system. And the following law system is just to find the already existent plans that make sense and fund them. But Jesse Waters would rather go on Fox News and say crap like, well, we just need to be meaner to the homeless people. And that makes him feel good as he gets in a limousine in the basement of Fox News, never has to step foot outside and encounter any of this. And he gets driven right to his house outside town through a tunnel, over the river and through the woods to his dumb Connecticut estate. No offense, John.
I come from Connecticut. That was a great point. Some of it I'm not interested in engaging in, but I don't want to open up a can of worms. But on the unhoused stuff, yeah, I agree. LA, by the way, our housing, like I can think of areas of the city that have been massively developed in just the time that I've lived here, and they're multi-million-dollar condos. That does not solve the problem, obviously. Yeah, there are plans. There are plans that make sense. Not having done for decades what people like Reagan and others did, that Jesse Waters, had he been alive at that point and on TV, would have been aggressively advocating for. It's the thing that's so amazing about this is, like, some Republicans just pretend to despise the unhoused this much because they know they're supposed to talk about the unhoused to get their viewers to be angry about them. Because their job, as much as I said that we have sort of similar careers, there are some subtle differences. Like, we try to get people to think critically about things that don't necessarily directly, obviously affect them, whereas their job is to take the occasional pangs of empathy that conservatives feel and get them to despise that and feel like their complete lack of empathy is actually the best thing about them. So it is sort of different. If they had not done for decades what they did, Jesse Waters would not have to feel sick constantly every time he sees someone who has nothing. And I'm sure that he does. He glances out of his limo and he feels sick to his stomach over what he sees. Ugh, someone with purple hair and a piercing. Yeah, but like we don't have to have that. Like, these are the economic policies that you support. Maybe you could have a slightly less nice limo and they could have a house. Like, maybe that would be a better way to live. A better world is possible.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.